Awesome, that worked. Yeah, welcome everyone on behalf of AIS and the great staff in Atlanta making this possible. I would like to welcome you to our next edition of AIS Research Exchange, this time advancements at JAIS featuring Editor-in-Chief Dorothy Leidner. Welcome, Dorothy.
Thanks, Roman.
Fantastic, that works, communication channel works. And my name is Roman Beck. I'm a professor at IT University in Copenhagen, and it's a pleasure to have Dorothy today with us and asking her a few questions about her views and her kind of plans for our premier outlet, the Journal of the Association of Information Systems. Kind of saying a few words and introducing Dorothy is a bit of a weird thing because I think you are a very prominent person in our community. But I tried to boil down a few things from your CV for those who might not familiar with your background. You are the Ferguson Professor of Information Systems at Baylor University and have a couple of academic positions nearly around the world as associate and appointed visiting scholar. Over 60 peer-reviewed journal publications, very impressive. 41,000 citations. I need to double check that. That is amazing. And you served in different positions, which is something we will talk about as well today. As Editor-in-Chief, of course, now for the Journal of AIS. But before that, Editor-in-Chief at MISQ, Executive, Co-Editor at the Database for Advances in IS, Senior Editor MISQ, and it goes on and on. And in addition, you were the co-conference chair for ICIS 2015, program chair for ISIS 2018, program chair for AMSIS 2010. And last but not least, you founded and are the director of the PhD program on information systems at Baylor University. So it's an amazing long list of activities and contributions to the field. And we certainly want to talk about that today. Dorothy, I think kind of everyone is kind of interested in what your perception as editor-in-chief is about the kind of role and positioning of JAIS. So since it was kind of founded and conceptualized back in 2000, JAIS served as the premier outlet for our community and as a beacon to give guidance and orientation. In your own words, as the editor-in-chief of JAIS, what is the mission of JAIS and what are you aiming for today?
Well, thanks, Roman, and thank you for the nice introduction. First, the mission of AIS, as we all know, is, but it's worth restating, to serve society through the advancement of knowledge and the promotion of excellence in the practice and study of information systems. It's really a nice mission, right? And within that mission, so JAIS has a mission, and I see it as JIS is responsible within this larger mission to publish the highest quality of IS research, to provide an avenue for thought leadership in the IS field, agenda setting research, and theoretical insights. And just a couple of words on agenda setting research. Not every single paper needs to be an agenda setting research paper, but I think as a journal we need to be pushing those. And I can give one example. I've told you this before, but I'll say it publicly. Your paper with Christoph and John King on governance in the blockchain economy, a framework and research agenda, is a marvelous paper. I checked yesterday; it's been downloaded now 2,270 times since October 2018, and that's the kind of work I think really pushes the next generation of research when there's topics coming out and people have a vision for what's coming. And I think that's wonderful research. And I think as a journal, we need to be pushing boundaries of theory, of method, and also of phenomena. And I'll say an example of the latter, pushing the boundaries of IS phenomena that we talk about. There's a paper that I really, really think very highly of in our January-February issue. It's called Online Child Sexual Exploitation, a New MIS Challenge. I think it's both agenda setting and pushing the boundaries of phenomena that we study. It's by Dionysius Dimitis and Jan Kietzmann. And I highly recommend it. And it's uncomfortable. It's a very uncomfortable topic, but it's time in the development of our field at the stage of maturity where we're at to be approaching these very uncomfortable topics, and because IT is playing an implicit role in what's happening in society and humanity, and we need to be at the forefront of that. And I think JAIS has a mission to be part of that.
So it's very interesting. Before I'm moving on to the next question, I just realized that I haven't introduced how this process works here today. If you have questions for Dorothy, we on the right-hand side have a category that says Q&A, and there you can post your questions, which you then can vote up so that we can prioritize the questions, so that we can also integrate your perceptions and your questions for Dorothy. You already mentioned sort of the relevance of research and the relevance of information system as a discipline to also kind of tackle societal issues that might be unpleasant but important. As you know, as we all know, there has been for a long time the discussion about rigor versus relevance, and then there has been more recently the discussion around theory is dead, data rules, what the role of theory is in the world. I don't want to repeat this kind of discussion, but of course I would like to learn a bit more about what you think, what the legitimacy and self-conception of JAIS is, and what you think is important to bring forward. So what makes JAIS more relevant and more interesting in contrast to other great leading journals in our discipline to give legitimacy to what we are doing and finding an audience? Right.
So I think that's a great question. And I would say we're a scholarly community, right? And when we started as a scholarly community, we were attached to other disciplines and attached to other disciplines, communities and associations, academies, however you want to label it. And I see JAIS as giving our community the much needed legitimacy in the academic world, right? So, every discipline has its own academy, its own major association. And for most disciplines, the journal associated with that discipline is one of the premier journals, and it represents the academic community. And I think we need that as scholars, within our business schools, within our universities. We need that our major association that only exists for our academic discipline. It's not attached to all sorts of, it's just for IS researchers. And we need our major journal of that discipline, or our premier journal from that discipline, to be one of the best, at the most elite level, right? And so if we want management, finance, economy, faculty to respect our discipline, I believe we need a strong community. So we need a strong AIS, and a strong AIS needs a very, very strong JAIS. And so I see AIS and JAIS both needing each other very much, and JAIS needs to push itself to be at the highest level, and it makes hard decisions, and it's tough screening papers and turning people down, but we need one journal that represents the discipline like in this fashion, just for the sake of the discipline itself.
We need a strong discipline. We need a strong journal, as we are also most of us are embedded in a business department or in a computer science department, to also kind of make cross-fertilization and contributions to other disciplines. And clearly, I think we all witnessed, not just during Corona, that our academic world is changing, in the last 20 years since JAIS has been founded. We see a lot of kind of economic pressure, changes in the responsibilities of faculty. The economic pressure has increased, with performance indicators are gaining more and more importance. We are measured for all kinds of stuff we are doing, having impact or lacking impact. And of course, kind of journals like JAIS having a great impact factor. And that is something that is used more increasingly in all kinds of measurements and performance indicators. So when we look at this economization of our discipline, how important are things like impact factor, or being among the journals mentioned in the FT50 list, or being in the senior scholar basket, and how is that helping us as a discipline in developing us? And what is your perception of the role of rankings for JAIS specifically, and how does it help us as an academic discipline?
Right. So yeah, these factors, impact factors, rankings, they send signals, right? They send signals to tenure committees, to colleagues in other departments, deans, and so forth. I think as a community, we know in our own minds what the quality is of our journals and how to make those equivalencies, but people outside our discipline don't necessarily have that knowledge. And so that's when these factors become even more important, because you're having to build cases that, yes, this journal is important, this discipline is important, and here's the numbers to show it. So I do think those numbers are important. It's not something we want to run the journal in order to manipulate numbers by any means. So we definitely will not do that. And our impact factors, honestly, not where I think it should be, not where I think it merits to be. I think the quality of JAIS research and qualities and article are very, very high. And some of the things, when you're not with a professional publisher, we have more resource constraints. So we're largely run and managed by volunteers, except for the copy and editing function, which is a very valuable function done by Monica Berth, and everyone else is volunteering. And, we're doing our best, but we don't have near the capacity to try to market as much as I would love to. But right now we do have some constraints in that area. We're doing the most that we can. I think our impact factor will increase in the coming years. I knew it would go down slightly when I took over, just because we were doubling the number of papers published from one year to the next. And that, puts some pressure on your impact factor. And it takes a couple of years of steady publishing the same numbers before it gets to where you want it to be. But so I think it'll be increasing in the years to come. And, I made a big push to try to get support for getting JAIS into the Financial Times. These are very political things, and I really don't know how people get in there. So we'll see if that was to any avail. But I think it's a shame that in a discipline that by now, I think between 7 and 10% of faculty in business schools are IS faculty, and yet only 3% of the journals in the list or something like that. I may be boggling the numbers here, were IS journals. And so we're really underrepresented in these Financial Times lists. And that's because we're still a relatively new discipline compared to economics and management. They've been around much longer and had much more time to establish their journals and get into these lists. So I think it's important in the long term, and we do need to have that as part of our strategy and vision. We don't want to manage completely for that, but we definitely want to be aware of it and do what we can to improve.
I can see kind of the first questions that are popping up in the Q&A section here, and I would like to kind of combine, let's say, the first two questions that got some nice votes here. The audience would like to learn a bit more about what topics would you like to see more often in JAIS, and I will combine this kind of with which kind of research methodologies do you find interesting? Let me paraphrase a bit what is mentioned here, and acceptable at JAIS. So topics and methods. What is the next big thing?
Well, first is method-wise, I think we owe the community to be very inclusive with methods. So almost every issue of JAIS, you'll have a design science paper or qualitative case study paper, survey paper. And we're trying to publish more econometrics papers and have some great SEs to handle those research. So as far as method goes, I believe we need to be very inclusive with method and be open to all methods. And with topics, so I wouldn't say there's necessarily a push for topics. I would like to see, like I said, the agenda setting topics. I mean, bring in very new topics that haven't been covered before, and new phenomena that are emerging with technology. And we have some great special issues designed to encourage this data science for social good, the social inclusion mini track. We have one on digital theory and digital transformation. And we have one coming out this next month on artificial intelligence. So it'll be appearing March, April, special issue on artificial intelligence. I think we need to see much more of the work in there's so much to be done with artificial intelligence. And I think it'd be nice to see some more papers coming in that stream. And then, yeah, larger societal questions, like I mentioned, the paper on the child exploitation. I mean, these are really important issues, and I think it's great when people can raise those, address them, and study them. And I love it when they submit their best work to JAIS.
Kind of agenda setting topics, addressing societal issues sometimes also require a bit of a risk taking on the journal side. What is your take on that one? You know, if you bring something up that is pretty new, uncharted, new territories, then of course there is nearly always an issue with, you know, the data is not at the superb level, the methodology, there's room for improvement. So at some point, you know, how do you value or kind of make this decision going for a very good topic, but the methodology might not be 100% there yet, or vice versa? Right. So kind of what is this risk attitude and appetite for JAIS?
Right. So no, I agree. So if it's something that's really pushing boundaries and our phenomena and with our theories, then yeah, sometimes the method won't be as rigorous as it would be for something that's well established. And I think that's part of the risk reward trade-off, and that we need to make that. We need to make the risky choices there. Obviously not, we don't want every single paper to be like that, right? So it needs to be a nice balance, but certainly I think with what I'm calling the agenda setting research, then yeah, we need to take some risks there and get the papers out there before the phenomena has already become mainstream. And so that's part of the challenge, because you don't always have the time to design the most rigorous study that could have been designed, and the data may not even be available at that point. That's part of being forward-looking. So you're looking before the data is actually there, you're coming up with your ideas. And so, yes, I think we definitely need to be willing to take some risk on those papers.
That might be actually a good kind of starting point to discuss this, what I consider a new JAIS promise review process, which I'm assuming many people are not familiar with yet. So maybe you want to say a few things about kind of this new way of
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So the JAIS promise option is designed with really two types of papers in mind. So we want to encourage people to submit their best work first to JAIS before they go somewhere else, right? And so in order to encourage that, the idea is that we commit to you after the first round. And it doesn't mean that there's no revisions entailed. There may be 2, there may be 3, but what we're telling you is that even if it's a thick review package with a lot of comments and it's a very major revision, what we're telling you is that we want to publish this. We're committed to publishing it. We think you can handle it. It may be a lot of work, but we want you to put your best effort into it. I feel like sometimes you'll get a review packet back and it'll say something like, well, it's a risky revision, risky major revision. And as an author, you think to yourself, well, is it worth full effort or not? You know, because if it's risky and I put full effort into this and the next thing I know, it's rejected, why did I put all that effort into it? So we want to take away that risk from your perspective and say, we are going to eventually publish your work as long as you do these revisions and we believe in it. And so that's the goal of the JAIS promise. Yes, you'll be motivated to submit your best work to us, and you won't have the risk that it goes through 3-4 rounds of revision and then is rejected. The other paper we'd like to attract is people who have already been through 3-4 rounds at another top journal, and at the very end it's been very frustrating and the papers for some reason hit a wall and been rejected. And there's just a lot of excellent papers that go through that, and sometimes they go through that at more than one journal. And honestly, after a while, the chances that you get really new, insightful reviews and new comments are pretty low. You're going to be getting sometimes the same reviewers and sometimes just the very similar comments. And paper, I think it's best for authors and also for reviewers, where we say, look, we're going to decide first round. And if you tell us the background, it's very helpful. We'll assign an AE to it, really look at it thoroughly. And some cases we've even looked over some of the comments that they've had to address, all anonymous, of course, from other journals, and say, look, you know, we see what you were asked to do, and we understand, you know, why it didn't make willing to work with you on it because we see potential. Or maybe we say, yeah, we don't think it's going to go further. But the thing is, you find out that first round, you don't get taken through a long, laborious process of revisions. It's a high risk, high reward type of option because the death screen on these are much higher. So it really has to meet a high level coming in. And then second, the SEs realize it's a commitment to you as authors, that they're committing to work with you until the paper's published. And so the things you will not get in this option, if it is a major risky revision, it'll be rejected because we can't offer commitment if it's a major risky rejection. So papers where the reviewers or AE come in and say, well, it could really be good, but I need to see extra data. So that won't make it forward in the promise option because with additional data, you never know what story might be told. So it's a little bit riskier than a standard. There's no reject, resubmit. There's no major risky revision, but for papers that really you feel in your heart, this is really the best you have to offer, and you've worked very hard on this paper, it's a really good option because you do find out the first round, you get that commitment. And yeah, this may still be a lot of work, but you have the commitment, so you know that it's worth putting your effort into it because it will be published. And we haven't had a whole lot of submissions yet to the promise option, which is probably good. So people are really thinking about if they want to take that risk. We've had several, I've handled about 5 myself, and I think 3 of them have been accepted. And I think it's worked very well. The ones that I've handled have had just me and an AE working on it. And 2 of them, the whole process took a year just because it was so quick with only me and the AE. We were able to do the reviews in about a month. And the authors were real responsive on the revisions. So it's not necessarily intended as a fast track, but it can turn out to be faster depending on how the SE handles it.
Diversity in the discipline, different topics that can be considered as agenda setting, diversity in multi-methods, mixed methods. Let's talk a bit about diversity also in the representation of the JAIS board. Diversity, integration, being open to different backgrounds is increasingly important. Mm-hmm. And I did a quick check on the senior editor board of JAIS, as that is something constantly an issue in Denmark. We discuss intensely diversity, and realize that we have 18 out of the 30 senior editors are from North America. 5 are from region 3 and 7 are from region 2. And there are only 5 women on the senior editor board. Does that reflect, let me put it that way, does that reflect the ratio of papers submitted? Or is that something that is a bit out of balance? And if it comes to diversity, what do you consider as an optimal degree of diversity also in a board of an important journal?
Right. So that's a very good question too. As far as submissions go, I wouldn't say that it's totally on par with where the percentage of submissions coming in. The board, what we're trying to do with the board is first of all give a lot of control to the community members. So if you want to be a part of the JAIS editorial board, you can come to me, and then I'm getting an echo with my voice right now. I'm sorry, it's kind of a distraction. I hope that's not echoing for everybody. But to be on the editorial board itself, the idea is you do about 5 reviews a year, and then you're listed on the editorial board. And right now, the board on the website, it's listed. That's a reflection of who's doing the reviews. So it's no longer me going inviting people on the board. It's if you're doing reviews for JAIS and you're doing a fairly high quantity, you're listed as a board member, because you're a very valuable part of the journal. If you would like to become an AE, then you come to me and say, I'm interested in being an AE. And if you've been doing regular reviews, and if you've published in JAIS or in an equivalent journal, then I'm very happy to give you the opportunity to be AE. I think if you look at our list of AEs, we have certainly a better balance between genders, right? And we are working on the regional balance. So it's been a little challenging, as you noticed, to get more representation so far from Region 3. I am working on that. We have 3 people joining from Region 2 in July. You're one of them, the SEs that will be coming on board, and Juliana Satanto and Daniel Veit. And I'm excited about that. And so I'm trying to make it a more of a transparent process. And then the AEs, if they're interested in becoming SEs, then they're being developed as AEs and they've handled enough papers, and then many of those I'm hoping will want to become SEs, and then I think you'll see a more of a balance. So ultimately for an SE position, you need people who've published in the journal regularly, who've done a lot of reviews for the journal, who've been involved with it and really know the vision and mission of it. And so you can't choose people, I think, based on reason or based on diversity criteria. You have to choose them based on their knowledge and expertise. But that said, I mean, you can definitely make an effort to go out and be trying to get people involved, starting at the ERB level and then the AE level and then eventually the SC level. So it's not something I think can be just changed overnight, but it's something that's definitely being worked on, and fairly, I would say we're making a dedicated push to improve the diversity and the representation across the regions.
So the call is out, dear colleagues. Get engaged, make yourself available as a reviewer, and offer yourself as an editor to get on board, if you will, on the journal. If we kind keep in this line, because we are talking already about community services, from our community for our community. I mean, this is essentially what AIS is all about. It's kind of once in a while we are running a conference, we are serving on a board as a senior editor or an associate editor. So it's a lot of responsibility. I mentioned in the beginning that you have been in so many different roles, it's hard to count, and that you care. You're running a PhD program. You have been on a lot of kind of DCs. What does that mean to you, community service in academia within the AIS and IS as a discipline? And what is caring for the discipline? Because that is one of the like performance indicators we rarely talk about.
Mm-hmm. I think that's a great question, and we're bounded together by knowledge, our community, and it's the knowledge held within our community, and to serve the communities, to cultivate the knowledge within it so that it grows and flourishes. And I think it's a real honor to serve the community and work with others. There's so many really remarkable people in our discipline and wonderful people involved with AIS, wonderful people involved with JAIS who give so much of their time and their knowledge and their self. And I really see it, to care is to serve. And I think serving is, for me, the most, serving to me is leading, right? You lead by serving. So you don't lead by leading, you lead by serving. To be the greatest, be a servant, right? And actually, one thing I do every year is I copy down from Scholar One a spreadsheet of everybody that's reviewed in that prior year. And I also copy one down just from all time. And so one of the neat things about JAIS is, since it was started when everything was already online with Scholar One. Back when I was an assistant professor, all our reviews were done by hand. I don't think there's any record of people that were reviewing for who, back in the 90s, because we would get the stuff in the mail and we would type out a review, print it out, and send it back by mail to the SC, right? But JAIS, there's a record of everything. And so I get the spreadsheet and I go through and I just look at who's been doing all the reviewing for the journal. And because you don't, that's really, to me, the ultimate in service, because you don't get recognized for it, you don't get credit for it, people don't even know you're doing it, you're anonymous, and yet you're putting a lot of time into it. And one thing, if I may, I'd like to share this one screen with you. So we started last year this JAIS Reviewer Hall of Fame. And well, wants to share my whole screen. I just kind of wanted to share this one thing. Oh, there we go. Okay, I wanted to show you the people on this list because to me, it's just so remarkable and so commendable what they've done for the journal. So I started last year, I went through and went through all the reviewers and organized course by reviewer name so I could just do a rough count. And I just thought, this merits some kind of recognition for the service that's been done. And so I divided into, the 25 to 39 reviews, 40 to 49 and 50. And I just updated this last month. So I did it again in January. I'll do it again next December. And, serving alongside people like this it's such an honor and a privilege. And so I think, to get to our question, caring is serving and serving is helping others. And in doing both, we're actually helping our community and helping ourselves. And so just a special thanks to these people and just to know I really do keep track of who's reviewing, and I appreciate everybody who's reviewing, whether it's a couple reviews a year or 4 or 5 reviews a year. It's all very meaningful. And we had 2 people get the Reviewer of the Year award this year, Christy Chang and Ben Chow, and they had both done 12 or 13 reviews. And this is in a time when, COVID was hitting. A lot of people weren't wanting to review, and it was just remarkable. So it's a real privilege to be working with just so many amazing people.
There's a question that is climbing up the voting list here, and that is going back a bit to gender setting topics that get published and how easy or difficult it is to get into the journal. And there is a question, or there is a statement saying JAIS expects as much as MISQ, but is as useful toward promotion like some easier journals. So that person is saying, I was recommended to avoid submitting to JAIS due to the imbalance between effort and results. And it's asking for any thoughts about that.
Yeah, and that's a very fair question. Absolutely, it's fair. I mean, I'll tell you, when I started, this is my 29th year in academia. It's been a long ride. So, and I started in '92. I think ISR was just coming out. Organization science was just coming out. And, back then there was no ranking. We didn't know how great they were going to be. I did publish my dissertation, organization science, just hoping it would be considered a good journal. And one of my first papers went into ISR, hoping it would be a good journal. And with JAIS, at some point, if we want to be one of the elites, which we do, we need it for the discipline, we need it for the community. At some point, you have to say, this is what we're going to take. It is as hard to get into JAIS as MIS Quarterly. I won't deny that. But we have to do that in order that there's going to be a little bit of a lag, but then eventually it will be recognized at the same level. But you can't publish stuff that's not as good and then expect people to consider you premier and expect people to put you on the FT list and expect the impacts to go up. So you have to make the tough decision. And I realize right now, so that's a tough one for faculty, especially junior faculty. I'm hoping senior people will step up to the plate and say, hey, I want to submit my best work to JAIS because this is what the community needs. This is what's in the best interest of getting our discipline and our association at the highest level. And so I'm hoping more senior people will take that on themselves and not come to me second after they've already gone through a round somewhere else, right? We want to get your work out there first. For junior faculty, I understand if at your university it's not recognized, it'd be a risk because maybe by the time you go up for tenure, it's become a ABS level 5, or maybe by then it's on the Financial Times, but you don't know. So that is a risk, and I understand if at your university you don't want to take that risk. I can understand that now. I'm hoping that's going to be changed, but we have to, you have to also consider what you need to do for your own tenure case, certainly.
But that question is actually quite good to kind of move to the other question I had here prepared, and that is kind of your recommendation for a junior researcher in IS, maybe also now in the light of that question. Who never published before in JAIS, where to get started? What is your recommendation? and how would you do that?
Right. So first recommendation is read, right? And read JAIS, especially if you're going to submit to JAIS. I mean, you'd be surprised. I'm sometimes shocked at how many papers get submitted that haven't referenced a single JAIS paper. And I think, well, okay, maybe JAIS hasn't published anything on this topic at all. It surprises me, but that's not the case. So normally the people are submitting, they hadn't actually read the journal. So I think the first thing, it just as a community, we actually should be browsing the journal. Now it's published 6 times a year. So every 2 months, go browse, just browse the titles, see what looks interesting and skim some of the papers. But as a community, I would like us to rally around the journal and say, you know what, it's part of being the community is looking at what's coming out in the journal and just keeping up to date with what the journal's publishing. So the first step is read. And then the second, for junior faculty, my recommendation, in this may sound somewhat trite, but I think it's very helpful, is to work with, have a co-author who has published in one of the lead journals to help. I think it makes a big difference. I mean, you're still going to be doing the grunt work. You're still going to be doing the hard work, but it helps to have someone who has the vision and has the experience, especially if it's your first time. And once you get over that hurdle of the first time, I think things get much easier. But so that would be my overall advice, I suppose.
If we talk about, kind of reasons why papers get rejected, and you just mentioned sometimes you receive papers that clearly didn't have a prior look into the journal, kind of maybe some fun fact or some insights in you as an editor-in-chief. What kind of rules do you apply when it comes to desk reject? In case you have any rules, I think that would be also quite informative to the audience. What kind of stick do you use to judge?
Right. So if you don't mind, I'll share one slide here too. So this was from I'll just do the it's from the workshop at the post-ISIS workshop for the special issue on social inclusion. I talked about, developing a contribution for JAIS, and I followed around the expanded version.
Right now we see a black screen.
Oh, you see black screen. Well, that's not good. Okay, so let me try again. Yeah, let me stop that. Take off. Okay, let's see. Do you see me again? I see something kind of interesting on my screen now. Okay, so let me try one more time and then we'll move on if it doesn't work. So I'll just share the screen itself and then put this at the forefront here. So yeah, this came from the workshop, the talk I gave at the workshop post-ISIS for one of the special issues. So when I'm screening papers, basically what I'm looking at is there something, because we all know reviewers are going to be asking what's new, right? What's new, what's interesting. So you want to make sure there's potential of the paper to get through the first round review, because otherwise it's really in the author's best interest to not hold them up for 3 months. Hopefully that's all it takes, but still not hold them up if it's not going to be an opportunity to revise. And so, there's these 5, I consider these 5 points that any paper has, the theory, the method, the composition, the phenomenon, the framing. And you're looking at, are there some areas of the paper that really stand out? So there's something particularly strong in the theory. Is it new to IS, or the first ones to bring the theory into IS, or is it a totally original theory that the authors have created? Is the phenomena, is it a very mature phenomena, or is it emerging? We take both, right? But if the phenomena is mature and the theory's mature and the method is rather emulative, then you're kind of here in this area, and you're going to come across reviewers that are going to say, well, there's really just nothing new here, at least of the quality as expected for a premier journal. So we're really looking, for people to be pushing these boundaries here and having some area that stands out. So something that's, maybe there's a real special way this paper is framed that's never been thought of before. Maybe there's something special about the theory. Maybe there's some really innovative aspect of the method that makes this paper stand apart, or the phenomenon itself is very new and very exciting. And so they're looking for something that stands out. That's what I would say. And if there's something that says, yeah, okay, this stands out, it's not in all papers. To me, research is some of the most valuable research that I've done. Certainly hasn't been published in an elite journal, but it was very valuable to me personally and very valuable to my learning and my development as a scholar. So just because it isn't going into a top journal doesn't mean it's not really valuable research. And so I'm not making any judgments about the research. I am just looking for something that I think is going to attract reviewers to say, yeah, there's something new in this. And this is also a chart I showed at the workshop, and the whole talk is available here at this link, but I'm happy to make these available. But when the topic itself is fairly mature, so the phenomenon is fairly mature, and the theory also is fairly mature, then the challenge for authors, I feel, is to either maybe they have some data that's something they've been able to study it in a way that no one had been able to study it before. So then your distinctions may be on the method side. The other thing is there has to be a lot of attention on the framing side. So because maybe you're the first one to bring this theory to this phenomena, but at the same time, it's fairly, why shouldn't that theory work in this phenomena? So you need to be changing or extending a boundary or challenging an assumption of that theory in order to create newness, right? So we're all trying to create this distinction and newness in our work, and it kind of helps to position yourself and know where you are in this little 2x2. I've been using this for my classes for years. It's actually similar, I should say, to the editorial, if you've seen it, that's coming out in my SQ special issue from Andrew and Susan and Sean and Brian. Theirs is a little bit different. It looks quite similar. This is how I positioned it, and this is in the talk here at this link. And so if you go to the editorial behind this, which was last year in January, it tries to add a little bit detail, but ultimately, as I said, what we're trying to do is find what's unique about this paper. Is there something unique? Is there something that I think the audience will respond to and will consider that's really insightful and something new and distinctive about this paper? And then that's really the desk criteria. If there's something there, then it goes on. And if it's desk rejected, as I said, it doesn't mean that it's not useful research. It doesn't mean it's not valuable research, but it just means that I don't think the chances of it succeeding in that first round are very high, and are high at all. And I don't want to hold authors up and ask reviewers to spend their time. I mean, people are so bogged down. There's so many, just so many reviews we get asked, all of us get asked to do, and there's conference reviewing and journal reviewing. And so we have to, I think, be wise in what we choose to review and try to make the process as helpful as possible to the authors. And so, if you want more on that, I mean, it would take a lot more time to explain the contribution and what I'm looking for. But I think the editorial from last year's January issue is a start, or the talk, which we have a link to from the workshop. Yeah, I hope that helps.
That I certainly, that helps. Kind of, if people would like to learn more, what dead on arrival means to you, when it comes to paper submissions. Everyone here, just as a quick kind of reminder, we will move back to the floor after this session, and you may have a chance to discuss and chat with Dorothy your questions if you had not a chance to ask your questions now. I have one final question, and that is a bit related to the format and this online interview, or this series we are having here, kind of, because something that always comes short is, this socialization part. Kind of, we talk about business, we talk about journal publications, research, but it's really kind of something that, kind of lacks a bit this hanging around. Kind of maybe something that to wrap up this session, kind of, you may want to share something kind of that is maybe not everyone knows about you, and might be like a surprise to give a personal touch to this session. So anything you think it's kind of a fun fact to know about you would like to share?
Oh, well, fun. I don't know. I don't think I'm just a very fun person, really. I'm kind of a homebody and a little bit on the shy, introverted side. So, what I enjoy, to me, a day at home, just walking my dogs, a day where I don't have to get in my car. I just can read, and I love to read, and I love to walk my dogs, and I love to work out. And I guess I wouldn't call this fun. It might be more unusual, but I will read the same work many times over. So I enjoy when I get a good book, I'll read it over and over and over again before I start the next good book. So I've just finished up a trilogy. I'm actually my fourth time through the trilogy. You may know the author, it's Charlotte Link. She's one of my favorite now, the Stormside. But I don't know, I get in it and I just read it over and over. And every time I feel like I learn something new, and I do that just in my personal reading for pleasure, and I do that in the evenings just for my spiritual development. I read the Bible. I just start in Genesis and work my way through Revelation. It takes about a year, and every time you learn something new and grow from it. And so, yeah, I'm afraid none of that sounds very fun, but
as we are all kind of like guests in your living room, in your private home, kind of, I think many people just want to know, for example, the name of your dog.
Oh, this one here is named Bina, and Jaden's been at my door growling to get in this whole time. I've had to resist getting up. She's my 80-pound lap dog who likes to sit on me while I read. But before she came in this morning, and she's been there begging to come in this whole time.
Super, Dorothy. Thank you very much for giving us an insight in your views, perspectives, and JAIS. And we are looking forward to see more, and of course, kind of hope that JAIS will prosper and will soon become a FT 50 journal, so that we all have even more to illustrate to our colleagues at the business schools, that we are contributing. Before we move back to the floor to give everyone a chance to chat, let me make a bit of an advertisement for the next announcement in announcing the next AIS Research Exchange, Bringing Science to Practice, which will take place March 15th with great colleagues such as Stefan Seidel, Dov Tieni, and Dennis Galetta. They will talk about science to practice. For now, Dorothy, thanks a lot for your time and for the great insights. And we all are looking forward to chit-chat a bit on the floor, and we will go back to the floor. So please hang around if you want to have a chance to talk to Dorothy or me or anyone else. And thank you very much, and hope to see you soon all again physically, for example, at great conferences upcoming like ICIS in Copenhagen in 2022. That was my advertisement block. Thank you very much, and bye-bye.
Thank you, Roman.